My husband, Julian, said he was going to Aspen for a tech conference. He called it a golden opportunity for his startup. He was right. It was an opportunity. For me, while he was busy networking, I found the 2 plane tickets, the couple's suite reservation, and the spa bill he tried to expense. He just didn't know her fiancé was his biggest investor. My name is Alara, and I am a risk analyst. It is not just my job, it is how my mind is built. I do not see the world in shades of hope or fear. I see it as a complex system of probabilities, balance sheets, and potential liabilities. My entire career is based on one simple premise: people are predictable, and data never lies. The smallest deviation in a pattern, the slightest tremor in a quarterly report, can signal a catastrophic failure. I am paid to find that tremor before the building collapses. My husband, Julian, is the opposite. He builds the buildings. Or at least, he sells the idea of them. He is a charismatic, infuriatingly handsome sales director at a burgeoning startup, Innovatech Solutions. He deals in charm, in vision, in handshakes and expensive dinners. I deal in the cold, hard numbers that prove his vision is either genius or fraudulent. We were, I thought, a perfect balance. He was the unchecked optimism. I was the grounding reality. The first tremor started on a Tuesday night. Julian came home late, buzzing with an energy that felt almost synthetic. He dropped his briefcase by the door, a mess of leather and clinking metal, and kissed me. His lips tasted like expensive whiskey and something else. Something new. "Ilara, baby, you will not believe this," he said, pulling a bottle of wine from the rack, not even checking the label. "The Aspen trip. It is 100% a go. A last-minute thing, but massive." He announced this to our quiet, minimalist kitchen, his voice too loud for the space. He was talking about a major tech conference. "It is a golden opportunity, Ilara, a total game changer." He paced as he talked, his hands gesturing wildly. He kept circling back to one name. Chloe. Chloe, this new potential client. She is the key, he said, pouring the wine with a shaky hand. She holds the keys to the entire next round of funding. If I can get her to commit, we are set. Innovatech is set. We are set. His enthusiasm felt feverish, slightly off-key. Julian was good at his job, but this was a performance I had not seen before. The data points started to accumulate. A few days later, a box from Montclair arrived. Inside was a glossy black ski jacket, the kind that costs more than a mortgage payment. "For Aspen," he said, shrugging it on, admiring himself in the hallway mirror. "Got to look the part. Right." "I thought you hated the cold." "Julian," I said, leaning against the doorframe. It was a fact. He complained if the air conditioning dipped below 72 degrees. "You cannot be in Aspen and not have the right gear. Ilara, it is just part of the business." Then came the cologne, a dark, musky scent called oud wood. It was not his usual clean citrus smell. It was heavy, designed for late nights and close proximity. And then, the phone. His phone, which had always been an extension of his arm, suddenly developed a new habit. At the dinner table, he began placing its screen down between us. "I am trying to be more present," he explained, when my eyes lingered on it. "Just you and me. No distractions." But placing it face down is not an act of presence. It is an act of concealment. It is a locked door. It changed the entire dynamic of our table, turning it from a shared space into a territory with a silent, glowing secret in the middle. The building did not truly start to shake until the following Saturday. I was in the home office, buried in spreadsheets, preparing our quarterly tax estimates. It was my least favorite ritual, a deep dive into the messy finances of our shared life. Julian's company used an expense tracking app, Expensify, and he was notoriously bad at uploading his receipts. I often had to log in as him to reconcile the accounts. I logged in, braced for a digital pile of crumpled Uber receipts and overpriced lunches. But the first item on the list made me stop. It was a charge from a restaurant in Aspen, a 5-star, tasting menu only kind of place. The line item read, "Client Prep Dinner." The amount was staggering, but that was not the tremor. The tremor was the date. It was submitted yesterday. The charge was processed 2 days before the conference was even scheduled to begin. I waited until he was packing his new Moncler jacket. I kept my voice flat, just another item on a checklist. "Hey, I was prepping the taxes and saw a charge from that Aspen restaurant. Did you prepay for a team dinner?" He froze, just for a second. His hand stopped zipping the suitcase. He turned, and the charming Innovatec salesman's smile clicked into place. "Oh, that. Yeah, exactly. It is for the advance team, just locking down the reservations, paying for the prep. You know how these places are. Have to spend money to make money. Right." He laughed it off, a small, tight laugh. My blood ran cold. There was no advance team. Julian was the team. He was the head of sales, going alone to secure a deal. I looked at him, at this man I had built a life with, and I saw the numbers lining up in my head. The new jacket, the cologne, the face-down phone, the predated 5-star dinner for the team. A risk analyst knows that 1 anomaly is a data point, 2 is a coincidence, 3 is a pattern. This was a pattern. I smiled. It was the best performance of my life. "Of course, that makes perfect sense. Well, I hope it is worth it." I walked over and straightened the collar of his shirt. "It will be," he said, pulling me in for a hug, burying his face in my hair. "This trip is going to secure our future. Ilara, I promise." I hugged him back, my mind already calculating the variables. "I know. Julian, just go and be brilliant. Go and get that deal." I helped him zip the bag, my hands steady. I wished him luck on his big trip. I watched him walk out the door, the lie hanging in the air between us like the scent of his new, expensive cologne. The alarm bells in my head were no longer a quiet hum, they were a deafening siren. The silence of our Denver house was deafening. After Julian left, the quiet, which I usually found peaceful, felt thin and brittle. I sat on the sofa for an hour, not moving, just staring at the dark screen of the television. That restaurant charge, that client prep dinner, it was a piece of data that did not fit the model. It was an anomaly that my mind could not let go. I went back to the office, the glow of the monitor lighting my face in the dark. I opened the expense app again, my movements precise. I stared at his profile, the smiling professional headshot he used, and then I saw it. A single line of text I had overlooked 100 times before. Linked email. It was not his Julian Kinnovatek.com address. It was his personal Gmail, the one he used for fantasy football and junk mail. He had linked the wrong account, a mistake born of arrogance and technical sloppiness. He had built a firewall but left the main door unlocked. I opened his Gmail. It was mostly what I expected. Newsletters, LinkedIn notifications, sales alerts. It was clean, almost too clean. But in the side panel, there was one folder I did not recognize. Sync errors. My pulse quickened. I am an analyst. I know that errors are where the truth hides. The system had tried to sync his expense reports but had rejected items that did not match a corporate profile. But it had not deleted them. It had filed them away. I clicked. There were only 3 emails. The first was not a restaurant receipt. It was a hotel confirmation. My breath caught. The hotel was not the Marriott Conference Center he had told me about. It was from a place called the Aspen Peak Lodge, a boutique hotel I knew by reputation. It was obscenely expensive, the kind of place with heated marble floors and private balconies. I read the confirmation, my blood turning to ice. Reservation name, Julian Kent. Guest, Chloe Sterling. Room type. The Mountain Romance Package. Check-in. 2 days before the conference. Check-out. 1 day after the conference. I stared at her name. Chloe. The key to the next round of funding. I was no longer a wife. I was an investigator. I opened a new browser tab and typed her name, Chloe Sterling. The search results painted a picture, not of a tech executive, but of a socialite. Photos of her at charity galas and on ski slopes filled the screen. She was young, beautiful, and, according to a Fawning Society article, the daughter of Theron Sterling, a venture capitalist whose fund was one of the primary backers of imitate. But the data stream did not end there. A recent article from a tech journal popped up. Aspen's power couple Chloe Sterling and Marcus Thorne announce engagement. Marcus Thorne. My hands started to shake. I knew that name. I had seen that name on the capitalization tables I had helped Julian review for our own finances. Marcus Thorne was not just a tech mogul. He was one of the largest, most influential angel investors in Innovatech Solutions. Julian was sleeping with the daughter of one of his investors, who was engaged to another one of his investors. I clicked back to the sync errors folder. My movements were mechanical. The second email. A finalized bill from the Aspen Peak Lodge's spa. It was itemized. Couples massage. Champagne and strawberry service? And, at the bottom, a note in Julian's request, please bill as client entertainment with guest on the folio. He had tried to make me, and his company, pay for his romantic getaway. He had tried to expense his own affair. The third email was the simplest, the most brutal. It was the e-ticket confirmation from the airline. 2 round-trip tickets to Aspen, seated together, leaving together, returning together, a full 5-day trip. The conference was only 3 days. I leaned back in my chair, the chill from the window seeping into my skin. The pieces were no longer just fitting together. They were forming a mosaic of catastrophic, reckless betrayal. This was not a simple, sordid affair. This was a bomb. Julian was not just cheating on me. He was committing financial fraud, stealing from his company, and jeopardizing the entire structure of his startup by tangling his personal lives with his professional obligations. He was risking everything, and he was using our shared finances to do it. The tremor had not been a warning. It had been the sound of the entire foundation cracking apart. The first sensation was not anger. It was nausea, a physical, visceral reaction, as if my body had identified a poison before my mind could name it. I stood up from the desk, walked into the living room, and looked around. The gray cashmere sofa we picked out together, the abstract art he bought me for our anniversary, the heavy oak coffee table. It all looked like a stage set. A lie. Everything was suddenly hollow, a fabrication built on my salary and his commissions. Commissions he was now earning by selling a false version of himself. My eyes landed on a framed photo on the mantel. It was from our trip to Lake Como last summer. We were on a boat, the sun hitting us both, his arm wrapped tightly around my waist. He was smiling, a wide, boyish grin that I had loved. Now, looking at it, the smile was empty. It was an insult. It was the face of a con man admiring his mark. The nausea receded, and something else flooded in, pushing the shock and the pain down into a deep, cold place. It was rage, but not a hot, screaming rage. It was the cold, clarifying anger of a problem finally defined. This was my territory. I am a risk analyst. My entire life is about identifying vulnerabilities and mitigating loss. And Julian was not just a bad husband. He was an idiot. He was a sloppy, arrogant fool who had underestimated the one person whose entire profession was to find the patterns he left behind. He had built a house of cards on a fault line and left a digital, itemized trail of breadcrumbs for me to follow. He had committed fraud, both emotional and financial, with the technical savvy of a first-year intern. I understood the dual risk instantly. He was leveraging his position at Innovatech, a company he was invested in, to conduct an affair with the daughter of one primary investor, who was also the fiancé of another primary investor. He was expensing the affair to the company itself. The liability was not just personal, it was corporate. He was a walking, talking, beautifully dressed lawsuit waiting to happen. My mind, which had been spinning in a fog of betrayal, snapped into sharp, crystalline focus. This would not be a tearful confrontation in our bedroom. This would not be a screaming match. This would be a controlled asset liquidation. I went back to the computer. I created a new, encrypted folder on an external drive. I named it Project Aspen. My movements were swift, automatic. I took screenshots of everything: the hotel confirmation, the mountain romance package, the spa bill for the couple's massage, the e-tickets. I downloaded the emails, preserving the metadata. I pulled the LinkedIn profiles for Chloe Sterling and Marcus Thorne, saving their photos and their professional connections. I compiled a complete file, a prosecutor's brief. Then, I scanned our shared cloud storage. It was mostly filled with old vacation photos and tax documents. But there, in a subfolder of his pitches directory, was a file I did not recognize. A voice memo. It was mislabeled with a string of numbers. I clicked it. Julian's voice filled the quiet room, confident, slick. Innovatech is not just selling a product. We are selling a future. We are offering a paradigm shift. He was practicing his keynote speech for the conference. I almost clicked off, dismissing it as irrelevant. But then the pitch stopped. There was a shuffling sound, the clink of ice in a glass. And then, a new voice. Chloe. Was that it? She giggled. You sound so serious. Julian's voice changed. It became low, intimate. That is for them. This is for me. I heard a kiss. Did you book the spa? Baby, booked, she said. The full package. Marcus is so buried in that new merger. He will not even notice I am gone for 5 days. And then, Julian laughed. It was a sound that will be burned into my memory forever. It was a cold, cruel laugh. And Alara? Chloe asked, her voice dripping with the casual cruelty of the wealthy. Is she still, trusting? Oh, completely, Julian said, and the condescension in his voice made my stomach clench. She is so buried in her little spreadsheets, she does not look up. That is the beauty of marrying a risk analyst. They only see the risks they are paid to find. She has my complete, naive trust. He had taken the last 5 minutes of his call with Chloe and accidentally recorded it. Naive trust. That was the line. That was the phrase that turned my cold anger into something harder, something forged. He had not just betrayed me, he had mocked my very essence. He had used my competence, my intelligence, as a cover for his own. I saved the voice memo. I added it to Project Aspen. My naive trust just became his single greatest liability. I made the decision in that instant. I was not just going to leave him. I was not just going to divorce him. I was going to make sure he had absolutely nothing left to come back to. I was going to liquidate. I did not sleep. I did not cry. I sat at my desk as the first gray light of dawn filtered into the office. And I began my work. The emotional phase was over. This was now a simple matter of asset reallocation. My first move was to review our entire financial portfolio, a document I maintained meticulously. Years ago, when we bought the Denver house, I had insisted on a specific structure. As the higher earner and the one with the financial background, I had placed our primary assets, including the house itself, into an ironclad revocable trust, a trust that I, and I alone, controlled. Julian had found it unromantic and a little insulting at the time. It is like you are planning for failure, Ilara, he had complained. I had told him it was just standard, high-level financial planning. He signed the papers. He had planned for a weekend of infidelity. I had planned for a lifetime of this exact kind of vulnerability. At 7 a.m. on the dot, I called my lawyer, a sharp woman named Cynthia who had handled the trust for me. Cynthia, it is Alara Kent. I need to schedule an emergency consultation. What is wrong? Her voice was instantly alert. I am initiating a hostile merger. The other party just does not know it yet. I need to secure all assets immediately. There was a pause. Understood. I am clearing my morning. My next call was to our primary bank, the one that held our joint checking and savings accounts. I spoke to the fraud department, my voice steady and concerned. My name is Alara Kent. I am logging a formal complaint of suspicious activity on my joint accounts. I have evidence that my partner, Julian Kent, is using our shared funds for fraudulent purposes and is currently on an unauthorized trip, incurring massive non-approved expenses. I need an immediate freeze placed on all accounts and credit cards he has access to. The words fraudulent and suspicious activity were the keys. They acted instantly. Within 10 minutes, every card Julian had in his wallet was a useless piece of plastic. While they worked, I was already online, executing the next step. I initiated a wire transfer from the joint savings, moving my legal 50%, plus the entirety of my last 3 paychecks, which I could prove were mine, into a new, individual account at a completely different bank, an account I had opened online 30 minutes earlier. I left exactly $100 in the joint checking account. Enough for a cab, perhaps. Nothing more. Then came the digital purge. I went through our life, password by password, the joint bank account login, the Netflix, Hulu, and HBO accounts, all paid for by my credit card, the Amazon Prime account, our home security system, which he could access from his phone, even the smart thermostat. I changed every password, logged out all other devices, and reclaimed our digital life as my own. By 8 a.m., he was digitally homeless. I walked into our bedroom. His closet smelled of his new cologne. I took his new Montclair jacket from its hanger, went to the kitchen, and used a steak knife to cut a long, clean slice up the back. I left it on his pillow. Then I found his old gym bag. I packed it with 1 toothbrush, a mostly used tube of toothpaste, 3 pairs of socks, 3 pairs of underwear, and the cheap, worn-out sweatsuit he used for lounging. I zipped it up and placed it by the front door. I went back to the office and pulled up our insurance policies. Life insurance. There it was. Julian Kent and Alara Kent, with me as the primary beneficiary on his policy. I called the insurance provider. Yes, I need the paperwork to change the beneficiary on my husband's life insurance policy. I would like to designate a new recipient. I gave them the name and federal tax ID number for a local wildlife sanctuary, one that specialized in rehabilitating wolves. My phone plan was next. I called the provider, separated my line from the family plan, and transferred the account solely into my name. I left his line active, but the next bill would be a shock, and it would be his alone. Finally, the last joint credit card, the one he used for business expenses he planned to be reimbursed for. I looked at the balance. He had, of course, spent lavishly right before his trip. I paid the entire $5,000 balance down to zero using my own protected funds. Then, while still on the line with the representative, I closed the account permanently. It was a painful, expensive move, but I am a risk analyst. Julian, in his panicked rage, would try to inflict financial damage on me. He would go on a spending spree out of spite, but he could not. I had just protected my credit score. I had cut off every avenue of financial reprisal. By 9 a.m., I was done. The house was a fortress. My finances were secure. He was an island, and I had just set fire to all the boats. With the Project Aspen folder complete and the financial firewalls in place, it was time to build the delivery system. This was not about simple revenge. It was about a targeted, strategic takedown. I was not just going to burn his life down. I was going to send a precise, targeted missile to the 2 pillars supporting his entire false world, his investor and his boss. I created 2 new, separate, password-protected zip files. The first file was for Marcus Thorne, the fiancé. I labeled it M. Thorne Personal Advisory. Saul, this package was designed to detonate his personal life. It needed to be sharp, brutal, and emotional. I curated the contents with surgical precision. I included the confirmation for the Mountain Romance package at the Aspen Peak Lodge, clearly showing Julian's and Chloe's names. I added the itemized spa bill, highlighting the couple's massage and the champagne service. Finally, and most importantly, I included the MP3 file of the voice memo. I edited the audio, cutting out the boring pitch practice, leaving only the last 5 minutes the giggling, the intimate baby, and the cold, mocking discussion of his naive trust and Marcus's convenient absence. I drafted a short, professional email. I would send it from a new, anonymous email address I had created, but the content would make the source clear. Subject: an investor advisory regarding Julian Kent and Chloe Sterling. Mr. Thorne, I am the wife of Julian Kent. I believe you are both an investor in Imitate Solutions and the fiancé of Chloe Sterling. I have come into possession of information that pertains directly to both your financial and personal interests. This information verifies a relationship between our respective partners, as well as an attempt to defraud Imitate by expensing their personal activities. The attached encrypted file contains the relevant documentation, including hotel bookings, receipts, and a self-explanatory audio file. The password is fidelity. I am sorry for this, but I believe in data transparency. Alara Kent. The second package was for Julian's CEO, a formidable woman named Barbara Davis. This package was all business. I labeled it Innovatech Financial Audit J. Kent. This was about fraud, liability, and risk. Inside this file, I included the fraudulent expense report for the client prep dinner next to the real hotel booking, showing he was never with a team. I included the spa bill and his request to bill it as client entertainment. I added the airline tickets, which proved he was using 3 additional days of company time outside the conference window for personal use. I wrote a cover memo outlining the potential legal exposure and SEC violations the company could face for improper expense reporting and failing to disclose a high-level conflict of interest with 2 major investors. The email to Ms. Davis was even colder. Subject: urgent risk analysis of J. Kent expense report. Aspen Ms. Davis. My name is Alara Kent. I am a professional risk analyst and the wife of your employee, Julian Kent. In reviewing our joint finances, I have uncovered severe, deliberate financial anomalies related to Julian's current trip to Aspen. He is actively engaged in expensing personal, non-business-related activities to Innovatech. Furthermore, he is conducting an undisclosed, high-risk personal relationship that directly involves 2 of your primary investors, creating a catastrophic liability for the company. The attached encrypted file contains a full brief and supporting documentation of his fraudulent activity. The password is liability. I am providing this to you as a professional courtesy before taking further action. Alara Kent. The packages were built. The payloads were armed. Now, it was all about the timing. A true analyst knows that the when is just as important as the what. I pulled up the schedule for the Aspen Tech conference. I scrolled through the itinerary, and there it was, a smug, smiling photo of Julian. Tomorrow. Main stage. Keynote address. The future of innovation scaling your vision. It was scheduled for 10 a.m. Mountain Time. A slow smile spread across my face. He would be backstage, sweating in his new Moncler jacket, practicing his lines, high on his own arrogance. He would be at the peak of his professional life, just moments before he stepped into the spotlight. I opened an email scheduling service. I uploaded both emails and their attachments. Send to Marcus, Thorny Thorn Enterprises. Send to B, Davis Innovatech, com. I set the delivery time for both, 9:30 a.m., 30 minutes before he was scheduled to take the stage, 30 minutes for the calls to be made, 30 minutes for the panic to set in, 30 minutes for his entire world to vaporize before he even knew what hit him. I clicked schedule. The bombs were set. I closed my laptop, the screen going black. The silence in the house felt different now. It was not empty. It was the calm, electric silence of a countdown. That evening, my phone lit up on the coffee table. The name Julian flashed on the screen, accompanied by the video call icon. My heart gave a single hard thump against my ribs, not from love, but from anticipation. This was the performance of my life. I let it ring 3 times, just long enough to seem preoccupied. I arranged my face into a mask of mild, wifely contentment. I picked up. His face filled the screen, flushed and overly bright. He was definitely drunk. Behind him, a massive stone fireplace blazed. The rustic, expensive logs crackled. It was the Aspen Peak Lodge, no doubt. I could practically smell the burning wood and his $500 cologne through the phone. I imagined Chloe was just off camera, probably lounging on a fur rug, glass in hand. Baby. He slurred slightly, his smile enormous. Look at this place. It is unbelievable. He flipped the camera around to show a glimpse of the suite. Vaulted ceilings, a balcony overlooking the snow. The conference upgraded me. Can you believe it? Top floor. Wow, Julian, I said, pitching my voice to sound impressed and a little tired. I made sure he could see me on the sofa, curled up with a book and a cup of tea. The perfect, boring, stable wife holding down the fort. That looks incredible. They are really treating you well. They know who is important, he boomed, flipping the camera back to his beaming face. This whole conference is amazing, Ilara. I have met everyone. The energy is just electric. I feel like I am on top of the world. That is wonderful, honey. I am so happy for you, I said. And what about your big speech tomorrow? Are you ready for it? Ready, he scoffed, taking a large gulp of what looked like scotch. Baby, I was born ready. I am going to walk on that stage and I am going to blow their minds. This is the one. I smiled, a slow, supportive smile. Oh, I have no doubt you will. Julian, you are always at your absolute best when you are truly passionate about your work. I let the word hang in the air. Passionate. He was too drunk, too arrogant to catch the double meaning. Exactly, he said, nodding vigorously. Passion. That is the key. So, I said, tilting my head, as if a thought had just casually occurred to me. How did it go with Chloe? I know you were so focused on her. I hope she liked your proposals. You worked so hard on that presentation. His face, which had been loose and ruddy, tightened for a fraction of a second. I saw it, a flicker of pure, cold panic in his eyes. The smile wavered. He had been caught off guard. He looked quickly to the side, probably at the real Chloe. Oh, he said, clearing his throat. Yeah, it went great. She was very impressed. The whole team was really impressed. Good, I said, my voice smooth as ice. That is just so good to hear. I know how much you were banking on that. I just wanted to make sure everything was going well, and that everything is okay back here at home. I paused. I was just, looking over some of our bills, preparing for taxes and all. His eyes narrowed slightly. Bills. What bills? Oh, just the usual. And I saw the expense reports you pre-filed, I said, making it sound like the most boring chore in the world. Looks like you spent quite a lot on client entertainment for this trip. I just hope it was all worth it. The panic was gone, replaced by his familiar, condescending laugh. It was a nervous sound. Ilara, baby, you have to spend money to make money. That is just business. You know that. Do not worry your pretty little head about it. You are right, I said, and I gave him the brightest, most loving smile I could manufacture. You are absolutely right. It is just business. I held his gaze. Well, you get back to your networking. Good luck on the speech tomorrow. I will be thinking of you. Every single minute. Thanks, baby. Love you, he said, blowing a sloppy kiss at the screen. Love you too, I whispered. I ended the call. My smile did not just vanish. It cracked and fell away, leaving my face feeling cold and hard as marble. I looked at the black reflective screen of my phone. The countdown was on. The next morning. I did not wake up. I had not been asleep. I sat at my kitchen table, The sky outside a flat, metallic gray. I was nursing my second cup of black coffee, watching the digital clock on the stove. My laptop was open on the table, but the screen was black. The work was already done. The machine was just waiting. 9:29 a.m. I pictured Julian, somewhere in Aspen, backstage. He would be electric with adrenaline, that fake salesman charisma turned up to its maximum volume. He would be adjusting the cuffs on a ridiculously expensive shirt, sipping water, ready to step into the spotlight and sell his vision. The clock ticked over. 9:30 a.m., 30 minutes until his keynote. As if summoned, a small gray notification appeared in the top corner of my screen. It was not a thunderclap. It was a quiet, clinical confirmation. Your scheduled emails have been sent. That was it. The trigger had been pulled. I closed my eyes, and I let myself visualize the impact. I pictured Marcus Thorne, 2 time zones away in his New York office. He was a man who, by all accounts, valued control and data above all else. His phone would vibrate on his polished mahogany desk. He would see the subject line: an investor advisory regarding Julian Kent and Chloe Sterling, and his blood would cool. He would open the email. He would read my short, precise note. He would type the password fidelity. He would see the hotel confirmation. He would see the coupled massage. And then, he would click the audio file. He would hear his fiancé's high, privileged giggle. He would hear Julian, the man whose company he was funding, call her baby. And he would hear his own name, spoken with disdain by a man he was supposed to trust. I did not imagine him yelling. I imagined a profound, terrifying silence as his face hardened, as he picked up his phone, not to call Chloe, but to call his lawyers. Then, I pictured Barbara Davis, the CEO. She was right there in Aspen. She would be sitting in the front row of the conference hall, her phone on silent, waiting for her star salesman to take the stage. She would see the notification pop up on her screen. She would see my name, Ilara Kent, and the subject, urgent risk analysis of J. Kent. She would frown, annoyed at the interruption. She would type the password liability. She would not see a romance. She would see the numbers. She would see the fraudulent expense reports. She would see the airline tickets, proof of stolen company time. She would see the names, Kent, Sterling, Thorne, and she would immediately understand the catastrophic, incestuous conflict of interest. She would realize the man about to represent her company was, in fact, a walking, talking lawsuit, a human liability that threatened her entire round of funding. But I am a risk analyst. I always plan for redundancy. I know that sometimes executives try to handle things quietly to protect the company. I had sent a third email. This one had been sent at 9:32 a.m. from a temporary encrypted email account that would self-destruct in 1 hour. It was not sent to the CEO. It was sent to the head of Innovatech's accounting department, a quiet man named Greg, whose email address I had found on an old tax form. The subject line was just one word: tip. The message was anonymous, short, and to the point. If you want to find grounds for a policy violation, cross-check Julian Kent's Aspen expenses with Chloe Sterling's guest folio at the Aspen Peak Lodge, specifically the spa receipts and room service charges. It looks like he is expensing an affair. If the CEO tried to bury it, the bean counters would dig it up. The trap was sprung from above and below. I closed the laptop. The silence in the house was profound. It felt heavy, like the air holding its breath. I stood up, walked into our master bedroom, and opened Julian's closet. The scent of his new, expensive cologne hit me. I looked at the rows of perfectly pressed shirts, the expensive suits, the shoes lined up like soldiers. I did not rip. I did not tear. I began to work, methodically. I took each suit from its hanger. I folded it, and I placed it in a black, heavy-duty trash bag. I emptied the drawers of his designer jeans, his silk ties, his neatly folded sweaters. I took the row of polished shoes and dropped them in. I went to the bathroom and cleared the counter of his products. his electric razor, everything. I found the sliced-up Moncler jacket on the pillow and tossed it on top of the pile. I filled 4 bags. I did not leave a single sock. I carried them, one by one, to my car and drove to the donation center for a local veterans charity. I dropped them on the loading dock. When I returned, I stood in the doorway of the bedroom. His side of the closet was a vast, empty space. The house was clean. The bridges were not just burned, they were vaporized. All that was left was to wait for the sound of the explosion, echoing all the way from Aspen. The sound, when it came, was not a distant explosion. It was the frantic digital buzzing of my phone on the kitchen table. I looked at the clock. 10:05 a.m., right on schedule. His keynote speech was, at this moment, supposed to be 5 minutes underway. The screen lit up with his name and his smug, smiling photo. Julian. I watched it buzz, the vibration rattling it against the wood. It was a physical manifestation of his panic. I reached over, my hand steady, and pressed the silence button on the side of the phone. I did not decline the call. I just silenced it. The screen went dark for less than a second before it lit up again. Julian. I silenced it again. Immediately. A new call came through. An unknown number with a 970 area code. Aspen. I silenced that, too. Then the barrage began. My phone became a solid block of light and vibration. Julian, 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 Julian. It rang 10 times, 15 times. He was mashing the redial button. His mind, I was sure, unable to process what was happening. Then came the texts. They flooded my lock screen, a chaotic waterfall of his disintegrating world, all rendered in little blue bubbles full of typos. The first one was just Ilara. What did you do? Then answer your phone. Then the CEO just pulled me off the stage. My God, I had pictured it. But the reality of that text was delicious. They had yanked him from the spotlight, probably as he was walking toward the microphone, his smile frozen on his face. The texts became more frantic, the capitalization and punctuation vanishing in his terror. Marcus Thorne is here in Aspen. Ilara, he is in a meeting with Barbara. They are not letting me in. Ilara, answer the phone. Damn it, they are saying I committed fraud. Fraud. Ilara. What did you tell them? I read the word fraud and felt a cold, deep satisfaction. It was the correct word. It was the word I had chosen. I was watching his messages stream in, like a live feed of a controlled demolition, when a new notification slid in from the top of my screen. It was not a text. It was an email. The sender's name made me sit up. Marcus Thorne. The subject line was 2 words, thank you. I opened it. The body of the email was as cold, precise, and brutal as I had hoped. Ms. Kent. Information received. My lawyer will be in contact with yours. As lead investor, I have called an emergency vote and frozen all further Innovatech funding, effective immediately, pending a full internal investigation. My personal matter with Ms. Sterling is being handled. I read the line again. Frozen all further Innovatech funding. My breath hitched. I had not just destroyed Julian. I had just taken a financial wrecking ball to his entire company. The golden opportunity he had been chasing, the funding round he had been sent to secure, was now gone. I had not just exposed a liability. I had become the analyst who sank the whole ship. The collateral damage was more extensive than I had even planned. My phone buzzed again. It was a notification for a new voicemail. His texts had stopped, replaced by a single, desperate audio file. I put the phone on speaker, keeping the volume low. His voice was not the confident, booming baritone of the salesman. It was a raw, ragged, panicked rasp. He was breathing heavily, as if he had been running. He was probably crying. Ilara, you. He was sobbing, a wet, ugly sound. You ruined everything you ruined. Me, Chloe, is hysterical. She is screaming. Marcus called off the engagement. He called it off in the hotel lobby in front of everyone. Her father is going to kill me. Barbara. Barbara just told me I am suspended. Suspended. This is my life. Ilara. You. Bitch. You did this. The message ended. I sat in the quiet of my clean, empty house. I looked at the phone. I thought about the voice memo. I thought about naive trust. I picked up the phone. I did not call him back. I did not listen to the voicemail again. I opened his last frantic text message and typed a single reply. No, Julian, you did. I hit send. 2 days passed. The frantic barrage of calls and texts had stopped about 24 hours ago, replaced by a profound, heavy silence. I assumed, been blocked. Or perhaps his phone had finally died, and he had no way to charge it. The silence in the house was a luxury. It was clean. I was at the dining room table, not waiting, but working. My laptop was open, and I was deep in an analysis of corporate bond yields. My mind comfortably locked into the predictable, logical world of numbers. The house was mine. Then, through the quiet, I heard the sound I had been subconsciously expecting, the crunch of gravel, the squeal of brakes from a car that needed service. A taxi. I did not move from my chair. I simply clicked from my spreadsheet to the security camera feed. There he was. Julian. He looked like he had been dragged from a wreck. He was still wearing the same navy suit he had worn for his keynote speech, but it was now a map of his downfall, rumpled, stained with what I hoped was not vomit, and smelling of stale whiskey and desperation I could sense even through the glass. He looked like he had not slept in 48 hours. He was trembling, his face a puffy gray mask. He stumbled up the walkway, fumbling in his jacket pocket, and pulled out his key ring. He jammed his house key into the lock. I heard the sharp, metallic clink as it refused to turn. He tried again, jiggling it violently. He pushed his shoulder against the door as if he could force it open. The locks had been changed, of course. It had taken the locksmith less than 1 hour the day before. His frustration turned to a blind animal panic. He balled his fist and hammered on the solid oak. Ilara. He saw the new, gleaming intercom panel next to the door. He stabbed the button, holding it down, a long, abrasive buzz-zizz filling the house. I let it go for 5 seconds before I pressed the talk button. My voice, calm and clear, broadcast out onto the porch. "Can I help you?" He recoiled, as if he had been struck. Ilara, thank God. Open the door." "What is wrong with the lock?" "Open the door. We need to talk." "I do not think we do," I said, my voice echoing slightly in the afternoon air. "There is nothing left to discuss. What are you talking about? Let me in. You cannot just do this. You cannot just lock me out." "I can," I said, "and I have." "You do not live here anymore. Julian, I am going to have to ask you to leave my property. You are trespassing." "Your property," he shrieked, his voice cracking. My, that is my house. My clothes are in there, my computer, my stuff." As if to punctuate his desperation, the taxi's back door creaked open. The cab driver, a large man with his arms crossed, was clearly getting impatient. A figure emerged from the cab, and my God, it was Chloe. If Julian looked ruined, she looked like she had been put through a wood chipper. Her expensive blonde hair was a matted, greasy nest. Her eyes were swollen red and raw from days of crying. She was wearing a pair of Lululemon pants and a single, thin silk blouse that was clearly rumpled from being slept in. She was a portrait of spoiled, collapsed royalty. She saw the intercom camera, and a fresh wave of rage contorted her face. "You," she screamed, her voice a raw shriek. "You bitch, you ruined my life, you ruined everything." Julian spun around, his own panic forgotten for a second. "Chloe, baby, calm down. Just get back in the cab. Let me handle this. We will figure it out." "Figure what out?" she wailed. shoving his chest with both hands. There is nothing to figure out. Marcus will not see me. He changed the locks on the penthouse. My father, he cut me off. He froze my trust. I have nothing. I am ruined. This is all your fault. She was screaming at Julian, but she was looking at my intercom. They started to argue right there on my lawn, a truly pathetic, desperate scene. He grabbed her arm. She tried to hit him. Julian looked back at the door, his face a mask of pure, unadulterated defeat. Ilara, please, I cannot pay the cab. He has been driving us. I cannot pay him. I let the silence hang for a long, cold beat. I watched the two of them, the perfect couple, standing in the wreckage they had built. I pressed the button again. That is a problem, Julian. It appears your credit card was declined by the taxi driver. I let that sink in. I suppose you are waiting for me to pay for it. Oh, wait. I paused, letting the timing land perfectly. I cannot. I closed that account. The revelation that I had closed the account, that the last vestige of our shared financial life was gone, sent them both into a new spiral. The fight was no longer about my betrayal. It was about their mutual, immediate ruin. You told me she would not know, Chloe shrieked, her voice thin and ragged. You said she was just a stupid analyst. And you said Marcus would never find out. Julian roared back, his face purple with rage and humiliation. You said he was too busy. You used me to get back at him. You were nothing. She spat. You were just an affair, and now you have nothing. You are useless. They were a pathetic, tragic spectacle, two spoiled children screaming on my lawn. I decided the performance was over. The deadbolt on the front door made a loud, definitive clack as I unlocked it. The door swung open, just enough for me to stand in the threshold, a chain link of cold air separating us. I was calm. I was dressed in my own clothes, in my own house. I held a small, empty cardboard box, the box that his Montclair jacket had come in. I tossed it onto the walkway. It landed with a soft, unsatisfying thud. Inside was the cheap gym bag, the one toothbrush, the spare phone charger, and a single, lonely-looking protein bar. This, I said, my voice cutting through their argument, is what is left. Julian's head snapped toward me. The anger in his face dissolved, replaced by a raw, desperate hope. He saw the door open and mistook it for an invitation. He lunged forward, stopping just short of the porch steps. Ilara, please, you have to help me, he begged, his hands clasped as if in prayer. Imitate, they fired me. They fired me. Ilara. They are suing me. They are suing me for fraud. You are my wife. You have to help me. I looked at him, at this hollow, broken man, and I felt nothing. Not a spark of pity, not an echo of love, just the cold, clean finality of a balance sheet zeroing out. I was your wife, Julian, I said. My voice was low, and it did not tremble. As of 8 a.m. yesterday, when I filed with my lawyer, I am your chief plaintiff. The DA's office will be calling me for a statement, and I am now the primary witness in the Imitate lawsuit against you. Chloe made a sound, a small, choked gasp. She saw the finality of it. She understood. She looked at Julian, her eyes filled with a disgust so pure it was almost beautiful. He is right, she whispered, turning to me. You are useless. Then she turned back to Julian, completely useless. She picked up her one small designer handbag from the taxi's trunk, slammed it shut, and, without a single look back, started walking down the long suburban street, her high heels sinking into the grass. She was already gone, on to the next disaster. Julian watched her go, his last lifeboat swimming away. He turned back to me, his body caving in on itself. He actually fell to his knees on my stone walkway, a caricature of a defeated man. "Ilara, please," he sobbed, actual tears carving tracks through the grime on his face. "Please, I have nowhere to go. My cards, none of my cards work. I have no money. I have nothing. What am I supposed to do?" He looked up at me, his eyes searching for that naive trust he had mocked. He was looking for the wife he had taken for granted, the woman who had balanced his books and paid his bills. I looked down at him for a long, quiet moment. I let the silence stretch. "That is not true, Julian," I said finally. He looked up, a flicker of that stupid, desperate hope returning. "What?" I said, "That is not true. You do have somewhere to go. I booked you a room." "You did," he whispered, his voice thick with relief. "Oh my God, Ilara, I knew you." "I booked you a room at the Traveler's Rest Motel, out by the airport. It is prepaid." His face fell. The Traveler's Rest was a place where things went to die. How did you pay for it?" "I did not," I said. "You did. I redeemed the entire balance of your Marriott Bonvoy rewards points, all those nights you spent on business trips. It turns out you had enough points for exactly one night at a one-star motel." I reached back inside the door and picked up a single folded piece of paper from the hall table. I tossed it at his feet. It was the confirmation printout, with the address and the check-in time. "You have 24 hours. Julian. After that, you are on your own." I looked at the taxi driver, who was watching this all with a look of bored neutrality. "I suggest you use the last of your cash to pay him, and then call another one to take you there." I stepped back, my hand on the door. "My lawyer will have the divorce papers served to that motel in the morning. Do not ever contact me again." I closed the door. I heard the solid, reassuring thud of the oak settling into its frame. I turned the deadbolt, the sound a final, satisfying click. I leaned my back against the door, closing my eyes. I heard, muffled, his final defeated "damn it." I heard the taxi door slam. I heard the sound of the second cab he had to call, arriving, and then, finally, fading away down the street. The house was silent, and it was all mine. Thank you so much for listening to this story. We are a community here, so let us know your thoughts. Drop a comment below and tell us where in the world you are listening from. Please subscribe to Lily Revenge Stories, like this video, and give it a big boost by hitting the hype button so more people can hear this story.